Good morning. I'm Jim Gibson and welcome back to the GMP YouTube channel. Today I want to talk to my own operators out of the port. We want to hit this information out to you so that you can understand the correct way to do your Qualcomm work, to send and receive the macros. Now this is actually pretty important. It frees up operations, your dispatchers, your terminal managers, so that they have more time to concentrate on other things. And as y'all know, the containers are on a good day, it's chaos. So by you doing this, it's only going to help them be able to do their jobs better. It'll be more efficient for you, less time consuming than waiting on phone calls and the whole bit. So let's cover some basic information on this and how it works. Now what you see in front of you now is what's called an IVG. It's one of our new Omnitrax units. It's been around for a while. But it actually, IVG stands for Intelligent Vehicle Gateway. Now some of you may have this unit in your truck, some of you may have the older unit, the small one called the MCP50. The MCP50 and the IVG are basically the same format, just a little bit different in appearance. If you have the MCP50, basically you have everything from here down. You don't have this panel across the bottom of it, it's a smaller unit. Yes. Now, all of you will be receiving this sheet. I printed a copy of what you see up on the screen right now. This is a basic layout on how the macros work, how you'll do each macro from each individual customer. But we're going to take the time to go over these with you. Hopefully this will answer the questions you have, and you'll always have access to this information either in printed form on YouTube, on our GP channel. To start off with, I want everybody to understand that just because you get a pre-plan, that's not a load assignment. Right? You can get your pre-plan and then your load assignment will come in. If you start doing your macros before you get your load assignment, all you're doing is jamming up the system. Once you get your pre-plan, wait on your load assignment, then start through the macro process, okay? Now this is a round trip to a customer and you're using the same box. So if you're on the port or if you're on the GP yard, you'll do a macro 1, which is arrival shipper, and then a macro 2, which is your loaded call. You get to the customer. When you get to the customer, you're going to do a macro 3. Now these trips that you're dispatched on are round trip. So your origin is either the GP yard or the port, and your final destination is the same thing. So what you're doing when you get to the customer is you're actually doing a stop off. So you'll do a macro 3, and it'll be stop 1. You do your macro 3 at the customer, then you do your macro 4. You come back in. If you're coming back to the GP yard, not going into the port, you'll do a T call, a macro 50. However, if you take it back to the port, then you're doing a 5 and a 6. Arrive at your final destination, and then your empty call, okay? Always follow either one of those up with a macro 18. The macro 18, those operations know that you're ready for your next dispatch. Now, if you're doing a round trip to the customer, but you're going to drop one box when you get there and pick up another box on the way back, this is the sequence you'll use. Here again, a 1 and 2, whether you be at the port or the yard, you do your loaded call, your arrive and loaded call. You get to the customer, you'll do a macro number 3, your stop off. And then because you're dropping this container, you'll do a 50, which is a T call on that container. All right? Then you'll do a number 4 with your new box number. All right? So that shows that you've already done your drop and hook, you've hooked up to your new container, you're on the way back in. Then the same sequence again. If you're going directly into the port with it, a 5 and a 6. If you're going to the yard and T-call it, then you'll do a 50. Now some of you do what's called reg. You do port in and port out, and that's what you do the better part of the day. Pretty simple if you're doing this. Right? If you're picking up a yard out of the port, coming out to our yard, on the port is your shipper, that's your macro number 1, your macro number 2. You bring the load into the GP yard, you set it down, a macro 50. You T-called it, you've terminated the load on the GP yard. Another driver will come in, hook up to it, he'll do the 1 and 2 again, and then take the load. Anytime you get out from under a container and you're waiting on your dispatch, always do your macro 18. Let operations know that you're ready to go back to work. Port dray in, okay, coming off the GP yard, because it's your shipper, a 1 and a 2. Pick up the box, do your loaded call. On to the port, final destination. Macro number 5, arrival final. Macro 6, empty. Then again, macro 18, ready for your next dispatch. Dropping the load to the customer. This one can get a little more complicated. So we're going to follow our basic system that we always do. If I pick the load up out of the port or off a GP yard, it's a 1 and 2. Right? Arrive at shipper, loaded car. If I'm going directly into the customer, it's a macro number 3 when I get at the customer, stop 1, and if I'm going to drop that box, and this is a round trip load, when I drop that box, they'll be sending me another dispatch to come back on. I'll do a 50, a T-call. Now, if I'm doing an export load to the customer, once I drop it and do the T-call, there'll be another dispatch sent to me with an empty box number to telling me to come back into it. If I'm doing an import customer load, when I drop it at the customer, I've got to do a number 3, arrive at stop, a number 4, loaded or empty at stop, a number 5, arrive at final destination, and number 6, empty at consignee, right? Then a macro 18. Once you do that macro 18, then you'll be sent a separate dispatch giving you an empty number, telling you what container to pick up at that customer, and we come back to either the port or the yard with it. I know this is a lot of information. We're always accessible to you if you need us. You can get these handouts that you're seeing here, and you can get these from your operations managers, your terminal managers. The sheets that we did in the beginning that list it, and we're also going to have this information on the GP channel, so you'll be able to have access to it just about any place you go. And our final slide today is picking up an empty at the loaded customer, or empty or load at the customer. Here again, when you get to the customer, a 1 and a 2, a 3 and a 4, then you get to the GP yard, 5, if you're going to the port, 5 and 6, if you're going to the yard, a 50. And I know that sounded like an awful lot of information, and it is, but concentrate on the fact that the macros that you're going to use on a regular basis are 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6. Anytime you send a 1, you got to send a 2. If you send a 3, you got to send a 4. If you send a 5, you got to send a 6. So you've got 3 groups. You're also going to work with macro number 18, which is your ready for next dispatch, and macro 50. The macro 50 being your T-call. These are the important ones. As long as you concentrate on those, you should be able to get through this relatively easily. Not everything on these macros necessarily has to be filled in. It'll ask for information like pallets in, pallets out. There's no need in that. Or it may say driver unload, or that's probably not going to happen either, okay? But the pertinent information, OE numbers, bill of lading numbers, chassis, box numbers, these type things, yeah, make sure that you've got that pertinent information in there. I hope you find this helpful. Remember that we're here to help. If you have a problem, your DMs, your fleet managers, your terminal managers, even us here in safety or in operations here in Columbia, give us a call. We'll do everything we possibly can to help you with this. But please understand that by doing this, you're not only helping yourself because you're moving through the process faster, it eliminates the time waiting on operations and them having to figure out what's the next move, but it also helps them be more efficient in their job. So please take the time to learn it, call us if you need help, and we'll see you in the next video.